Hey everyone. Before we get down to a brand new fresh batch of true life horror stories, I just wanted to give a quick update on this channel. A few of you have touched base just to check that I'm still making content since I haven't uploaded anything in like 2 months. Sorry about that. If you've already heard this, or if you just want to get straight to the stories, the timestamps are in the description. So I'm definitely still keen to keep creating content. This channel is definitely not dead. I really enjoy doing narrations and interacting with you guys. It's such an honor to be given permission to narrate and share your personal experiences, and I really want to do you justice. Making really good videos with proper editing and effects takes a lot longer than I expected it would when I first started doing this. Also, my life is pretty hectic. I work a really demanding job with Child Protective Services. I love it, but it's really long hours and it's just really draining. I'm also engaged to someone who is massively out of my league, and I had a huge surgery in June and I'll need more in January, which is always a lot of fun. I'm hoping to get into a position soon where I upload regularly. That's like the dream. In addition to all of the scary true life stories from Let's Not Meet that you guys have given me permission to narrate, I've also had requests come through to read people's creepypastas. I'm really excited to expand my focus to that kind of thing too. If you have a creepypasta that you'd like me to share, please do let me know. The email and everything is in the description. I'm also looking at doing some mini docos on famous serial killers. I'm from New Zealand, if you couldn't tell, and there's a lot of weird shit that goes down here. So, with all that in mind, if you haven't already, I'd recommend subscribing, so that until I get to the point where I'm uploading all the time, you don't miss it when I rise back from the dead, or maybe out of the mausoleum. Get it? Because the channel is Mr. Yeah, okay, I'll shut up and give you what you're here for. Peace. My girlfriend and I had been living in our new apartment for maybe 3 to 4 months at the time of this story. For clarification and background, we live in a basement level unit. The one and only entrance is inside the building and down the stairs. However, there are 4 windows facing nothing but a row of shrubbery and tree line. It was roughly 9 or 10 PM. She was at work for the evening and I had the place to myself. Lights on and TV blasting. I was sitting in the living room planning on eating trashy and binge watching the remaining episodes of Broad City. Not long into it, however, I heard a scraping sound from the bathroom. My first thought, a mouse? Obviously, a mouse was the last thing we needed. So I get up and make my way through the hallway as quietly as I can to catch a glimpse of it. The closer I get, the more I realize the scratching isn't coming from the bathroom, but rather the window in the master bedroom. My next guess was it's just some kids playing outside, as they tend to, or maybe even the bunny I had seen bouncing out there that morning. Even more likely, it was just somebody taking a dog out to pee. I paused, trying to hone my hearing, and only then I noticed it wasn't a sound echoing from outside, but rather scratching on the window itself. I stared into the bedroom when I noticed the sound stopped and moved to the adjacent window in the room next to it. This was a smaller bedroom that gave us the creeps as it is. We never used it, there's no light source, it now simply sits dark and empty apart from a few boxes of my clothing. Now thinking back, it was probably a bad idea. I'm a small girl, maybe 5'2", 90 pounds soaking wet. But I do have a bit of spirit and a bit of a temper. I had hoped upon being discovered that whoever it was, obviously to me now that it was a someone, not a something, would run off. I had caught them red-handed. So I steeled myself and I yelled out, "I hear you! What do you want?" The scratching stopped instantly. I waited. After what felt like an eternity, I assumed the coast was clear. I made my way to the windowsill and slowly cracked open the blinds. I don't know why I did. Because there he crouched, peering into me with the widest and wildest eyes I've ever seen on a person, most certainly strung out on something. He told me to let him in. As shocked as I was, I almost laughed at the audacity, as if I was just going to swing open the window and let him waltz into my home. Using the remaining courage I had mustered, I tell him not so gently, "No, get the fuck away from my house." He again told me to let him in, to which I informed him I was calling the police, and hurriedly proceeded to do just that. I even turned the phone to face him for added effect, hoping this act would scare him or intimidate him, anything to get this man to leave. Unfortunately, it had the exact opposite effect. He was seething, raging and practically foaming at the mouth. He drew back and punched the window, hard, repeatedly slamming his fists and palms against the glass. The window started cracking, blood flinging up like a gore-filled movie effect. I was out of there fast, heart racing, slamming the door shut behind me. So tempted to run out the front door, but incredibly scared that he would just come around the front of the building. It would take no time at all for him to do that. Torn and trapped, I picked up the nearest blunt object and placed myself in between the two doors. I figured whichever one moved first, I'd go out the other. I still had the phone to my ear, urging the 911 operator to get someone here fast. In my panicked state, I also feared for my girlfriend, who would be coming home soon. I messaged her, warning her about what was going on. Eventually, sirens and a pounding came to the front door. The police had arrived. I explained what had happened, and they searched the apartment and area near the window, coming back with a set of keys that he had possibly dropped, but no sign of him other than the broken window. They took a sample from the blood splatter on what was left of the glass. My girlfriend came home shortly after, having left work early, and called the police herself. I'm so grateful she did. Maintenance had been notified, and they threw up temporary boarding until it could be repaired. They never actually found the guy. Or if they did, I never received any updates about it. Definitely didn't get any sleep that night. So this story is my mother and father's, but they don't lurk on this sub. A little bit of context. I live in a really scummy city. A vast majority of the population was normal people, but we also have a large number of unsavory assholes. My house is in a pretty good neighborhood, right beside a rich people neighborhood, so there isn't a lot of crime, but it still happens. My house is rather large, and we have a driveway leading to the back, where we have a garage. This is also where we park our SUV and car. It's enclosed between our house and the neighbouring houses, so there isn't a view of the street. My parents' bedroom is right in the corner there, so they can see the driveway and the garage from their bed. It's a Saturday morning. The sun is just coming up, and my mother is awake for some reason. She's laying in bed, snoozing, when she hears something in the driveway. My dad is asleep beside her, and she looks out the window to see a very skinny dude coming down the driveway. Obviously, her first instinct is to wake my dad. He jumps out of bed and begins to put his pants on. The dude has a baby blue girl's bike, the ones with the high handlebars and the wide seat. Obviously, it was not his. He leans it up against the fence and he starts scoping out the garage. My dad goes out onto the back deck and asks him what he's doing. The best part is he takes the dog with him. My dog is not a mean dog by any means. She is the sweetest dog in the world, but she is protective of us. She is a medium black mixed breed who's bulky and wide. At first she's happy and thinks she's meeting somebody new, then she clues in and shifts to guard dog mode. Ears back, tail down, low deep growl. The guy tells my dad he's looking for a bike pump. Sure buddy, and my dad tells him he can't help him. The dude starts getting lippy.
Come on, man. Help me out here.
No, leave. We can't help you.
The guy takes the bike and starts off, then turns around.
Man, fuck you.
So what happens next is gold. Dad opens the gate. My dog runs out into the driveway but stops when my dad calls. Of course, the whole time my mum was on the phone with the police and they came by to take a statement. I hope they got him. So, creepy dude who was probably going to break into the garage? Let's not meet. I was 16 at the time, and I had just gotten my driver's license. I was able to drive on my own until 11 PM. I didn't have a car at the time, so I was using my mum's car. I also had a membership to a local Planet Fitness, so I would go and work out a few times a week after I got off of school. One night, I decided to wait and do all my homework at 8 PM, so when I was done it was already 9. I wanted to go to the gym, since I had nothing else to really do and I hadn't gone in a while since I was particularly busy that week. My parents let me go, but I had to be back at least before 10:30. I hopped in my mum's car and made the 5-minute drive to the gym. I had a good workout and I left around 10. On the way home, I almost hit a guy who was going 10 miles below the speed limit. I switched lanes to get around him, but as I pulled in front of him, he accelerated and laid on his horn. He drove over to the side of me and started yelling at me through his window. I ignored him since I didn't want to start a road rage incident. Thankfully, unlike most horror stories, he didn't follow me home. When I pulled into my driveway, I pulled under the carport to my house, as that was where she always parked her car. I turned off the car and stepped out. Just as I closed the driver's side door and was walking to my front door, I heard someone call out from behind me.
Hey, excuse me.
I turned to see a man, standing about 5 feet in front of me. He appeared to be about 30 or so, with a shaved head and a thin mustache and beard. He was about my height, so around 5'8", and had a stocky build. He was wearing a light-coloured muscle shirt and cargo pants. Even without much light, since the front light was off, there was enough moonlight to make out his appearance. I was immediately on high alert. For one thing, it's 10 PM, and another, this dude had to have been standing near my driveway or hiding around it since I saw no one in my headlights pulling into my driveway. Nevertheless, I decided to play it cool and answer him. "Yeah, can I help you?" I asked him calmly.
Hey, I was wondering if you could help give me directions to the gasoline service place.
He asked in response. Side note, gasoline service place? I've never heard of that phrase to describe a gas station before. Okay, I responded. I was keeping my eye on him, making sure he didn't pull any sudden moves. His hands weren't in his pockets, so I could at least tell he wasn't holding a weapon. I also kept my ears open to any footsteps I heard, as this guy could have a buddy hiding in the shadows, waiting for the perfect opportunity to attack me from behind. I proceeded to give him directions to 2 gas stations near my house, both of which were about a quarter of a mile or so away. He seemed to have a lot of trouble understanding the directions, to which he explained that it was because he was from New York and was in my town visiting a friend of his. He then proceeded to ask me where the Mason Lodge was around here. I still have no clue what he was referring to. It wasn't a name of a motel or inn nearby, and a search on Google showed nothing in my area. I was starting to buy this guy less and less. He seemed sincere, but the fact he came out of nowhere to ask for directions in the middle of the night in a suburban neighborhood was suspicious to say the least. Plus, as I mentioned before, I hadn't seen him in the beam of my mum's car headlights at all when I was driving down the street and turning into my driveway. That meant he had lightning-fast walking speed, with the quietest footsteps I have ever heard, or that he was hiding nearby and I caught him and he was trying to act lost to appear credible. After talking to this guy for what felt like 10 minutes, he smiled, told me,
God bless you, man.
shook my hand, then turned around and began walking down my driveway. This is where things get even creepier. Me, thinking the whole ordeal was over with, turned around and took 2 steps towards my front door. However, I immediately panicked as I realized that by turning around, I had myself vulnerable to an attack from behind. I turned my head toward the direction of where the man had begun walking to, only to find him completely gone. I looked around, but he was nowhere to be seen. I had turned only for a couple of seconds, and in that time he completely disappeared. This would be impossible for a couple of reasons. Number 1, I live on a pretty long street in my neighborhood. My house is near the middle of that street. Now, there is one street that cuts through my street pretty much in the middle and makes a four-way intersection. This is located about 5 houses down from me, but even if he had ran with the speed of Usain Bolt, he wouldn't have reached that intersection in the span of 5 seconds. Number 2, he made no sound whatsoever. Now, this could be related to the fact that I had not heard him walking up to me when I originally pulled into my driveway. However, there were no noises at all. Not a single sound could be heard, so unless this guy moved around without making a peep, he would have been heard by me. I freaked out and sprinted to my door, unlocked it and ran inside. I then slammed the door and locked it again. I sat there, catching my breath, trying to rationalize on what had just happened to me. Thankfully, my house wasn't broken into that night, and nothing ever happened. I told my parents the next day, and while they were worried, they told me that we were probably okay, considering that we live in a pretty safe neighborhood. I mean, the sheriff lives down the street from me. But thinking back on it now, I still have so many questions. I would love to know where that guy could have been hiding, or how he was able to disappear into thin air in under 5 seconds. I looked up and down the street several times, and not a single person was outside. To this day, I am convinced that this guy was just hiding around the corner from me, waiting for me to go inside. That can be the only likely scenario. I have never gone to the gym that late at night anymore. Whenever I do arrive home late at night from work, a party, etc., I always rush inside. This man could have been genuinely lost, and maybe I was a good Samaritan helping a stranger, or he could have been a potential burglar, criminal, etc. who I caught before he was about to plan his attack. But to the man who was in my driveway, if you were in fact a lost guy out in my neighborhood, try and get help before it is dark so you don't scare anybody. But if you had any malicious intentions, then let's not meet again.